Season 7, episode 2.
Woo.
Black Berea podcast.
With a special guest.
So you got Mary, not a special guest. You got Zoe, you got Femi.
Yo.
And you also have Zogu. Pastor at City Worship.
Come on.
Husband of Toby. Shout your wife, father of 2.
Husband of one.
Husband of
Husband of one, yeah.
Don't mind me.
Wife.
Marathon.
That was last episode.
Oh yeah,
Podcaster.
marathon.
Yeah.
A dad. Dad of 2.
To show you that
daughters.
the walk. No, to show you that the walk is not a marathon. It's a marathon.
Can you
Not a sprint. Hey, you preaching. Hey.
He's a podcaster. Shout out Real Talk, Real Walk.
Come on.
He's involved with 412.
Yes.
Shout out Ayo Donui. And
Dad
you
of 2.
Also, dad of 2. I said dad of 2. I got
did
that
say
in my
that.
notes.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
And he's also apostle. So, shout out
All
Pastor
of it.
Eman.
We
Malware, game changer.
Also known as Game Changer.
Yes.
Also known as Game Changer.
Happy
How are
to be
you? How
here.
are you doing?
Thank you for having me in the first place. You guys, I was thinking about it today. You guys are really legendary. Have to pay homage because you've been in the game for a hot set.
Yeah, for a while, small.
And yeah, you've
Alongside
set
Real
pace for-
Talk, Real Walk.
Yeah, for sure.
We've come a long way, but it's good to be here.
Yeah.
So thank you for
Long
having
time
me.
coming.
No, the pleasure's all ours, man. The pleasure's all ours. Definitely want to give you your flowers before I forget. But like, I think your ability to like engage online with a watching world is something that I commend, especially how you do it as well.
Yeah,
Like
I appreciate it.
you're not trying to fight. Like you're trying to be great. Even I saw a tweet, someone was trying to come for your neck the
Yeah,
other day.
I know,
Is it? I
I know,
missed
Friday.
it.
Don't mind him all. They tried him all.
Yeah.
But even the way you responded, like, you know, Jesus and activism. But the way you responded for me is always encouraging to see like Christians engage in a very godly way online. Like, and as someone who runs away from anything online and don't quote tweet me, I'm gone. But like, it's always encouraging to see you because you're very prophetic in the way you speak truth to power. You're trying to engage with the world. So no. So yeah, like tell us about yourself, man. Like, how did you become a Christian?
Who
How
are
did you?
you?
become a pastor?
Listen, I'm a PK, so naturally, we were just thrown into church life from the jump. I could play drums from age 4.
Wow.
I realized I could like speak to people, speak to the public from like age 5.
Jeez.
So like my dad would sit in front of me with my younger brother at the dinner table. Then I would get like one of those plastic kiddie chairs. And I'd get my dad's Bible and I'd put it on there and I'll start just copying everything, all of that. And people realize, this kid can preach from early. But as I grew up, it was like, everyone's like, you're going to be like your dad, you're going to be like your dad. By the time you get to your teens, you're like, bro, I ain't trying to be like my dad. I love my dad. My dad is amazing. My dad's my hero. But I'm not trying to be a preacher. I know I can preach and I can speak, but yeah, I don't want to.
What did you actually want out of interest?
What did
you
I want to?
Yeah, did you want to do?
If I'm going to be honest, I feel like by the time I was a teen, I wanted to be a spy.
You what?
Wait a minute. It was?
You what?
I wanted to be a spy.
MI5, MI6.
I
Your
didn't
face is
know.
really straight.
I didn't expect
Yeah,
that.
Well, black people
I
can't be
wanted to be a
spies or
spy.
what?
Can you
I'm
actually
just checking
stop?
what black people can't be spies.
Can you stop?
Wait, can you specify a
Can
few
you say
things?
more?
I've got so many questions.
I don't grab. I've never heard.
What-
No one's ever said that to me.
When you
before.
said teen, what? Like early teen?
Yeah, early teens, like 13.
Okay, not late teens.
What
Not
show
like,
were you watching that made you think you can be a spy?
You know what? And I'm sure you'll probably think that it doesn't even make sense, but the bill.
Oh my
that actually makes sense.
The
That
bill
completely makes sense.
The bill makes
Yeah.
sense.
Detective.
They put
Yeah.
undercover work as well, didn't they?
Yeah, small detective, CID, but I wanted to be a spy. And I think the idea
that's so
of
funny.
traveling the world, fighting people, beating people,
Yeah.
doing what's right for the
Yeah.
world, that's what I actually wanted to do it.
So he said, I'll be a preacher. That's what I'll do right for the world.
yeah,
Spies for
man.
the kingdom.
I
Can you
spy for the
stop?
kingdom.
Joshua
Wise as a
Joshua
serpent.
Caleb.
I was thinking that. I was just thinking that.
That's me, yeah. No, so I wanted to, that was my angle, and then after like a couple of years, I thought, okay, cool. Like I started to develop an interest in tech. I thought, okay, cool. Still maybe the spy thing, but maybe the technology angle,
Behind the scenes.
maybe the Black James Bond sort of thing.
It's not too late.
Yeah,
It's not too late. It's not too late.
it's late. It's late. That window is gone. And then by the time like college, I failed my first year of A levels, and yeah, that knocked me for 6 because obviously growing up in a Nigerian household, you're not. For me, I felt like I was a failure. But knowing my parents, I should have known that I wasn't gonna get the sort of response I was anticipating. So I remember like I was getting used, like I got a couple U's, and I remember coming home going, yeah, it's peak for me. And then my dad was like, let me see. He saw U's as well, and he's like, son, I still love you anyway.
That's powerful.
I was like, bro, okay, cool. That gave me enough momentum to go back at it again. And so this time, like I was very strong on tech. I wasn't too sure if I was going to go towards the spying thing, but I thought, okay, cool, let me still angle towards tech. And that kind of led me to do my A-levels again, and then that led me to Brunel. At that time, I was kind of wrestling with God, say for a couple of years, and that's where we kind of met, because I used to, going back a little bit, used to be involved in the UK gospel grime scene and stuff like that. So very active, like the era of the Faith Childs, Triple O's, Governors, that era, like the early eras. People like Dwayne Triumph and New Bleak Crew and Jahazel, they were already out there, so they were people I was looking up to. G-Force. Yeah, so they were people that I was looking up to, and then we had, you know, those of us running in behind. So I was doing that. I was very passionate about music as well. Used to write a lot. And yeah, I said, okay, cool. Maybe the music and tech we'll see how it goes. By the time I got to uni, like I really strongly felt like God calling me to something deeper than what I really wanted to do. But I didn't have language for it. By the time I got to uni, before my Smalls era, I was the lookout champion at Brunel, and in a good sense. So, and I think that's one of the funniest things about my uni experience, is because when I got to uni, obviously Brunel was very popular uni, or was a popular uni at the time, especially like the black community. And I've gone there, and obviously raving and this and that and the third, but everyone knows me like to be the person you can speak to. I'm cool with everybody. The rugby lot, the football lot, the man them from the ends who are shot in, the people from the Midlands that have come to London to, you know what I mean? I was just cool with everyone. International, I was cool with everybody. So I remember sometimes people used to ask, like, how does Smalls like know or how does this guy know everybody? And it's just like the first couple of weeks, I just went around just doing me, and just this aura of being able to be personable and connect with people was just, there. And that's something I had known from when I was younger. My dad always used to tell me, he was like, when you were in nursery, like from nursery, everyone just used to gravitate to you. Primary school, same thing. Secondary school, I was the school champion. Like, they created an award that they had never created before, like the best student in the history of the school.
Game changer.
Literally, like it was just wild. And let me go back a bit as well. How I got saved in secondary school as well. My head teacher led me to the Lord.
Wow.
Yeah, powerful. He's passed away now, but yeah, he led me to the Lord. Amazing, like not too far from here in Hackney, so I grew up there. And that was a funny experience as well, because just before getting saved, I was wrestling with this. The contention I had was, being a PK, it's hard to be yourself.
Yeah.
So the pressure of people looking at you, expecting you to do this,
they're
expecting you to be perfect.
Yeah.
These times, like, the parents, they know their kids they're wayward. Yeah. They're crazy, they're wild.
PKs have a rep.
But me, if I and it's mad, because I know so many PKs, right? And the pressure, I feel like the reason why a lot of people have that stigma about PKs is because I feel like, even though we have to take accountability for our own actions, I feel like a lot of them were driven that way by people. Because when you can't be yourself and you feel like you have to live up to other people's standards, there comes a time when you like begin to resent.
Sorry, quickly.
Go for it.
Did we actually define what a PK is? Because we were saying PK.
Pastor's kid. For those that don't know. So when you say it too much, it's Christianese. Christianese. So
you were saying resentment.
Yeah, that resentment, and it builds up, and it's kind of like, it's like when you're a child, when you say to a child, don't touch that, don't touch that, don't touch that. After a while, the child is like, what's this that this adult is telling me not to touch? I want to touch it. Even if I want to touch it, there's something about it. And so for me, it kind of got to a point where it's like, yeah, man, I love my parents. They've raised me well, man. But the church people are driving me mad. So in school, perfect. In church, perfect. Outside, That's one thing. One thing I can say was I was a very special hypocrite. So outside, I used to fight a lot, but that was my way of venting all my anger. So in school and everything I was feeling towards my parents, towards church people, X, Y, and Z, I just bottled it up. Outside is fighting. So I wasn't a gang member, but when it was time to fight, I know who to call on. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. And yeah, that's one of the first things that when I got saved, that's one of the first things that God dealt with, like anger, the anger issues, the resentment that I had towards church people, that resentment that I had towards my parents. And when I say my parents, I want to say my parents they did the best for me. So it's not like they were bad or this, that, and the third, but I resented them because when I felt like I should have been protected or my siblings should have been protected from certain things, it was kind of like they were being a bit diplomatic. It felt like they were being diplomatic. They were trying to hit everyone's side. Yeah. Whereas we were suffering at the expense of them being leaders, trying to serve everybody. Yeah. And that's what leadership is hard. So anyway, so long story short, back to uni, I was running away from God. And I felt him. I didn't feel like it was pastoral ministry per se. I felt like it had to do with church. But yeah, what I was sensing was it's looking like that, but I'm not trying to entertain the idea of that I'm at uni now, so I'm not even trying to entertain all of that. I ran for like 2.5 years, and then one day in my uni dorm, my pops called me. He's like, "Son, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know how you're feeling, but I just want to let you know that the call of God is strong on your life." And I'm sitting in a room, lights off, curtains. This was like 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm sitting in the dark on my bed, not doing anything. But I'm just rattled because I'm like, I can't keep on running from God. Like, there's something here. And I'm at uni, and these times at uni, by then, Smalls, everyone knows him on campus. If it's when it's time to skank in a rave, I'm there. When it's time to play football, I played first and second team at Brunel. So you're popular because of that. You're popular because of your faith, the Christian community. I was big in that as well. So it felt like a lot, but at the same time, I felt like I was lost because I feel like I'm doing everything for everyone, but not myself. Yeah. That time I'm just sitting in the dark, and that call changed my life basically. I was like, okay, God, I'm gonna stop running, and whatever that looks like, cool. And then like a couple months later, my parents were like, okay, cool, we're gonna put you in charge of the youth ministry. And they were like, we're going to do a service, invite your friends and let them know. And at that time, I was dating my wife. So they were like, let her know everything. I did not let her know. And I always say this every year, up to this day, she's still vexed with me for that. But yeah, I did not let her know. I did not let anybody know. Because I was still managing the expectation, but also trying to be like, okay, cool. I don't want to rush into this thing. Cool. And then, all of a sudden, like, there were youth events, and then people would see me on the flyer. And then at uni, people were like, bro, I didn't know, like, you're a minister at church, like, you preach around. I was like, it's peak. And obviously, word gets about quick. So even a man, them were like, bro, I didn't know you preach. So tell us about this Jesus sort of thing. So it was mad. Like, we were on the strip. These guys might be smoking a joint or whatever. And I'm here talking to them about God. And they're like, bro, like, you've never put it in this way, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, what, like, why am I in this predicament? Because if security come, they speak for me as well. But I literally just being able to do that, people that were just felt so far from God, like being able to do it. So God kind of used this personality that he gave me to kind of do that. And that's from there, the journey's gone on, fast forward to 2017, where we were serving at a church before Majesty in Uxbridge. So my wife and I were serving there.
A church before Majesty?
The church, no, before we started City
Worship.
Oh,
okay, cool. Yeah.
We were serving at a church called Majesty together. So we were pastoring there under the senior leaders. Once again, I felt God strongly saying it's time to plant a church. So for a year, we kind of waited it out. I told the leaders then, They weren't too happy to hear it because things at the time were going well at the church, and it's like, okay, cool. If Eman and Toby leave, what's gonna happen like with the millennial group? What's gonna happen with the young adult group? And yeah, like it took a year. We wanted to respect the leaders, and just give them space to kind of prepare and plan, and also kind of just make sure that we honor them, because I don't like leaving church messy.
Oh, for sure.
And a lot of people do, and especially people who maybe want to plant a church or plant a ministry or whatever. Some of them can be the messiest. So for me, I was like, I want to be integral. Like, I want to be really integral. So we did that. 2018 July, we planted CW, and
Planted it. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was a church.
Planted it with just you and your wife?
Straight. Yeah. It's no para church. We planted it straight.
How did you find planting? What are the things that you didn't expect or you found surprising being a pastor? You've been on the Lord.
When you plant a church off the back of nothing, like it's good. Bruh, it's only by grace. I'll be honest, it's only by grace. Everything is on your head. Yeah. Everything is on your head. You can't, at that moment in time, you can't rely on people. People will come, but you can't say, oh, you guys are going to be the setup team when we've just only, like, we don't know if you're going to come back next week. Yeah. The reality was that was the case. Like, people would come like 2 weeks and we wouldn't see them again. Some people will come like 2 weeks, we wouldn't see them for like a month, then they'll come back another 2 weeks. And it's like, okay, cool. But we're the consistent figures here. Yeah. The church equipment at the time, like, like a couple speakers, a mixer, and some other bits and bob. Like, we had that in our house, and we started on Fridays. We'd pack it. I was driving a free series at the time, so
God has blessed you.
Bruh, it's crazy. Like packing speakers, a mixer, this, that, and the third into a free series. It doesn't have a big boot.
Don't have a big boot.
So we're literally having to put, and it's leather seats as well. So goodness me, that thing got scuffed badly. For the sake of God's will. So and then like we lived in like an apartment, so I would carry the stuff down. Now to give a bit of context, the week we started CW, we found out that my wife was pregnant with our first. So 3 days before. So yeah, it always
has to be something.
There's always something. It just So like when I'm carrying this, I'm carrying it by myself. My wife is not carrying anything because she's pregnant. I'm like, babe, don't even touch anything. So I'm carrying it down into the car. When we get to church, I'm carrying it by myself into church. By then, at the venue, my brother would come. So my brother is one of our leaders as well. So it will be the two of us. We'll put it in. We'll set up. When it's done, we'll pack down. We'll put it back into the car. Drive home. Take everything back up. I can't even leave the stuff in the car. Like by the time we get back, I have to do it. So literally, it was everything a hard graft. Everything, even like no one's really giving as well. Like people give £1, £2, £5. Like it's not doing anything.
Not regular,
and obviously you have to pay for the venue. So then, like literally, it's off our back. Like by then I was contracting, so thank God, like. I was able to be in a position to do that, but at the same time, it's like money to live, and I'm using the rest of money for like church, and then after that is taxes. So literally, whatever's left is going towards taxes. I remember like there was one instance, our 2nd year anniversary, no one came to service. No one came to service.
Crazy. Was this you and your wife?
It was me, my wife, and my brother.
Did you still preach?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Why?
Nobody came. I don't know.
What was that like for you?
That must have been so discouraging.
It was so demoralizing. Honestly, like my wife sings, so she led worship. My brother plays keys, but like I said, he's also one of our key leaders. And I remember just standing like at the door, just looking and waiting for people to come. Like we had gone to Costco to go and buy a cake and buy food and X, Y, and Z. And I'm still waiting in faith, like anticipation, like, I'm sure people will come. Nobody came that service. So it was us, this big Costco cake, and my first daughter. And we just there, and we fellowship together.
2 or 3 are gathered.
Yeah. And I just, the same way I would preach, if there were 5 people there, 10 people there, 20 people there, 100 people there, the same way I did. And it was, for me, like, over time, it was like, God teaching us to be faithful, irrespective of what the situation is.
Faithful for whatever you have.
100%. And that's really what like church planting is.
Yeah.
You don't know if your first service 100 people are gonna come. You don't know if 2 people are gonna come. Either way, you still have to give your all, because that's what you've been called to.
Yeah.
You know, and we shouldn't be partial as to how we treat God's work. It should be the same energy, and that's it's interesting because that's a big like mantra for me anyway. My energy like with anybody is the same. Like the way I'm speaking on a podcast is the same way if I met someone outside on the street, like my hands will be flying around. Like that's
just how you are.
And I'm the same everywhere. So yeah, it was very disheartening, but that was it. And then after that, you know, it's been a steady journey. We're 6. We turned 6 in July by the grace of God.
I was going to say, how long's it been? 6 years?
Yeah.
Since you've been a pastor.
And we've come a long way from there. Now I don't have to carry church stuff. But there's still obviously teething issues and growth issues that are related to planting a church. For sure. But we've come a long way. I think a lot of it has to do with you have to be tunnel vision, and you have to know that by faith, God called me to this, and if He called me to this, He's going to be faithful to
do the work. What would you say? Sorry, I was just going to say, what would you say is the best or like most unexpected like blessing of being a pastor? Something that you didn't expect that's like actually turned out to be a blessing.
You know what's funny? I would say it's maybe people who are like new to the faith, and we've been able to journey with them, and their like steady growth, and then how they're able to just pick up stuff and be faithful with that. I think that's one of the biggest, like in our journey, like people who've been in the faith longer, just some of them, because I know some of my guys might be listening to this and be what's he talking about? Nah, I'm not. There's some who have been very faithful, and they were saying that and whatnot, but some who are new to the faith, but they're zeal for the Lord, and they're like just being submitted to the process of discipleship, and then being able to pick up stuff. And then you get parents and cousins and boyfriends and girlfriends coming going, since they've come here, like they're different people. Like the work Jesus has done in their life is crazy. And then it's like, thank you, God, because the work we put, it's day and night. It's night and day. It's work. But to see the fruit of it, it's just a beautiful thing. I think that's one of the greatest blessings of being able to pastor. Like, it's not, for me, like, and I don't say this lightly, but, you know, like I said, I knew I could speak or preach or whatever from young. So that doesn't wow me. Like, what really moves me is the fact that God could use someone like me to be able to raise other people who are faithful for Him, or faithful towards Him. Yeah. Bruh, that one blows my mind all the time, because when I look at some of them and I look where Jesus took them from, I'm like, wow. Like, that's what actually gets me excited. Like, I come home after service and I'm driving home and I'm just talking to the missus, and that's what we're talking about. It's not even like, loads of people came to church today. It's like, those are the blessings that keep us going and remind us why we should be faithful. 100%.
Yeah, change lives. Yeah.
And it seems like we were kind of speaking before the pod that your online presence seems to be one of the things that stands out to me is your heart for men, your ministry towards men. I know there's 412 that you and Ayo do together. So it'd be great to hear just like, what have you learned about what have you learned about men from your experience of being a pastor? I might throw a couple questions in there. What have you learned about men, and what do you almost wish other leaders, pastors, elders knew?
Good question. I mean, I can't even. How old are we? 412 men. I think we're around.
For 7 years. I think I saw like you guys had a 7 years.
It's been that long.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it started with my brother, Ayo, and he was like, look, I just feel like we need to start something for men. We need to start a community for men. And because he's my best friend. So I said, look, the way I treat friendship is, if you're like that to me, we'll go. You don't even need to ask me. So I'm there. So London Bridge, so I'm traveling from outside London to London Bridge every Monday. So pre-pandemic, we were doing every Monday.
Men's Monday.
Every Monday, crazy. London Bridge. There was a Pret next to the bridge, and that's where we used to gather. And there was it was 2 floors. So the ground floor, very massive, loads of chairs, loads of tables. So we used to gather there, and we would. At first, it was steady, probably a group of 10, 12 guys. And then half a year, it's just started growing rapidly. And at first, we were trying to get a church venue, because it's stable. Because this is, we're using a coffee shop.
Coffee shop, yeah.
These people can kick us out.
Literally, we're closing now, please.
I'm talking Christians as well. It's bros, you're doing Christian stuff here. This is a public place. But you know what happened? I think after the first year, the manager of the place was like, yeah, I'm going to give you this space.
Wow.
You can use it every Monday. Literally.
That's fantastic.
They gave us, they were like, you can use that space, as many chairs as you need. So as guys were coming down the stairs, the more men came, they would just grab a chair and whatever.
You guys weren't even buying coffee, or you were buying coffee?
Some of the guys naturally would just buy. But even if we didn't, they were still going to give us that space. But naturally, after work, guys are going to want a coffee, X, Y, and Z, or like a pastry or whatever. So I'm not really a Pret fan, so I didn't really.
Fair enough.
Actually, I walked in with my Starbucks. So
not the ops as well.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I'm not too keen on their coffee, but and after a year, they actually shut the downstairs for us.
Wow.
Yeah, they shut the downstairs for us, so people couldn't even get rocking like that. And we were doing it, and we were consistent. So to your question, what did we learn about men? One, that men's ministry isn't a priority enough in a lot of churches. And the stats and the reality that there's a big decline in men going to church, and we see loads of women in church. Is I wouldn't even say, is it the elephant in the room? I don't know how to describe it. It's something that people know, but not enough people were addressing it.
Or doing something about it.
So you see women, you see ladies events, women's conferences, X, Y, and Z. You see a lot going towards that. And for the men, it's just so we were just okay, cool. And then we saw a lot of men that just felt like community is very key. And one of the things that was so crazy is even after they had locked up Pret, we then hit the street right outside. And then
what do you mean by the street?
They were talking. Now they're discipling each other on the streets,
outside,
as in under the sky.
Yeah, okay. Right next to London Bridge.
Chopping it up.
There's 30, 40, sometimes 50 man standing outside in a huddle, in a circle, we're praying. So every week, naturally, people get out their phones and they're seeing guys just praying, and they're recording us, and they're doing we were literally doing church on the streets. There will be guys homeless people that will come, and they'll be like, yeah, I used to go to church when I, but then I just lost my way and drugs, this, that, and the third. And we'll be like, yeah, guys, let's pray for them. And then we'll pray for them, and then afterwards we'll be like, guys, let's raise funds for
money
for
for
this,
them,
or let's go and buy them food, X, Y, and Z. And someone who didn't have money for a hostel just left with enough. Guys that didn't have jobs came, and jobs people that were I wasn't, I've got a bad relationship with my dad, X, Y, and Z. We're counselling them, encouraging them, X, Y, and Z, go back, having a conversation with their pops, and things are shifting. So it was it was such a beautiful thing. It was so crazy. So much happened on the curb outside London Bridge. At the same time, it was the safe spaces as well. To be able to open up. So one thing is community, that's one thing, but the ability to just be able to talk about the challenges that you're facing, the issues you're facing. Church, a lot of churches don't have those platforms. And one thing I find frustrating, and I found frustrating, is that there's this eager push, obviously, for men towards leadership in church. And then there's this pipeline of men, ministry, I'm a pastor, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm an evangelist, and then somehow quickly find themselves to a leadership position. But then, there's a sprinkle of men in the church, there's a handful of men in the church, why is this the case? There's this eager push to put them in leadership or ministry, but do you care for their soul? And I guess this kind of ties into discipleship, which we'll probably touch on later, but it's very frustrating where
Start touching on it.
It's interesting because I feel like when you're trying to keep people, you give them roles.
Right.
So I think I've spoken to a lot of guys who've told me that like if they're not called to like being a pastor or someone like that's teaching, they feel like they don't have anything else to do because it feels like I have to be a pastor or I'm just in the pews. But then I know to keep men, sometimes you feel like you got to give them a role.
Yeah. And
that's probably why, like, if you've got a church of like 10 people and 7 are girls and 3 are guys, you're just going to be like, give the guys the minister role so at least they'll stay and they feel like they've got to contribute.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's usually the case.
Yes, yeah, very much. But I'm not a fan of that. Why I say that is because when it comes to church ministry or, you know, leadership, you know, responsibilities in the church context, when we focus more on the gifting and not the person, we're setting them up for destruction.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh yeah, this guy knows how to speak to loads of people. They know how to, you know, connect and they know how to draw people in. Let's make him this. And it's like, you don't care about him, you care about how he benefits
the church.
And so a lot of guys find themselves in that space, and that's why the last decade, let's look at church leaders, all spectrum, all denominations. Let's look, men, whether it's doctrinal error, whether it's sexual perversion, whether it's adultery, whether it's stealing money.
It feels like one after the other.
It's just one after the other. And a lot of them, when you dig deeper, you find that they were gifted, they were talented, they had, you know, charisma, they had aura. And then, but these are the things that they focused on, and
less
in a
about
sense,
the character.
And we missed that character element. And for me, I know I'm saying, and for me, but
that's true.
two of my biggest values are in ministry are longevity and being able to, and authenticity. Longevity, I was talking to someone over the weekend, longevity, we don't talk about enough, but if we want longevity as believers, we know that endurance is a must. But I think I am coming to an understanding that longevity is going to mean that there's a lot of things that we're going to have to forsake in order to stay on the narrow road.
What do you mean?
So I think, for example, it's very hard, like, you know, when Jesus says it's hard for a rich man to it's harder for a rich man to enter which way around is it?
To enter heaven. Like, it's easier for a camel?
Yeah, to enter the eye of a needle than to enter the kingdom of heaven, right? And I feel like, especially with leaders anyway, I feel like amongst all being on the big stages and the platforms and the opportunities and stuff like that, not saying many of them, God calls them to that, but I think there's gonna come a time where we're gonna have to be honest and say, if I want to be able to follow Jesus, I can't take all of these things. I can't be able to take all of these opportunities. I can't be able to, because I know this is gonna draw me away from Christ. And that's why I'm saying longevity. Some of us are going to have to make some critical decisions.
Count the cost.
Sacrifice, isn't it?
I'm going to have to. You know what? If I want to stay in this thing, I'm going to have to choose my family over the masses.
Yeah. I remember a pastor kind of talking about, like, you've got this new job offer. But it's in the middle of nowhere, but it's paying the bag. But you're away from your local church community. You're away from your family. Like, you might need to say no to that for the sake of your faith.
100%.
But it's, you know, it's hard, isn't it? It's tempting.
There's the contention is there, but you have to think what you want. And for me, I want longevity. Yeah. So that means that there's a cross that I have to carry for that. And that may, to my carnal self, it might mean that I'm going to have to miss on some things that, you know, probably would have done me well in one way, shape or form. But I know that at the end, I'm going to hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant.
Yeah,
and that is, I think that's the challenge. Like, a lot of men that are kind of being prepared into leadership, we don't worry about their character and we set them up to fail. And then when they do fail, everyone was like, oh, I knew it in the first place. They were too proud.
Yeah.
I knew they were going to be like that. But who put them there? Who pushed them there? You know, a lot of leaders, like, I say a lot of the time, like, if people put you in that position, the same people are going to be able to take you out of that position as well.
Yeah.
If God puts you there, then you're going to have to trust him by grace that he will keep you there.
Yeah.
So for me as a leader, I'm always careful that, it's funny because I was thinking, when I was driving in the car, I was thinking, people want their leaders to entertain them and not to serve them. And when I say entertain, I mean people want to throw their, oh, I think my leader should do this and I think my leader should do that. And leaders end up conforming to the image of leadership that that their sheep kind of mold out for them. And I was thinking about it this year, like so critically. Moses, I was trying not to preach.
Preach, brother.
So you have Moses, and I was studying this year, like a year before the children of Israel crossed into the promised land, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam died. And obviously reading the Bible, we know that they all died, but I didn't know that it was a year before they crossed into the promised land. And obviously Moses was technically the last amongst them too. And I started to think, why was Moses in that position? And then you go back and you find that the people draw Moses out, he's vexed, he doesn't follow God's instruction. Strike the rock X amount of times, you go and do it in your own way. There's other moments where they're complaining, they're grumbling, they're you're vexed, you're always getting Moses is always, he loves the people, but he loves the people to a point where he just can't follow God through and through, because there's that attachment to them that just makes him go, you know what, I love you guys. Can't you guys see what I'm trying to do for you?
Yeah.
And then you're missing out on what God really wants for you. And I was like, so many leaders find themselves in a position where you love the people, and we thank God, like we have leaders who look after the sheep. But at the same time, you have to be able to go, I want to look after the sheep and serve God faithfully.
Yeah.
But if the sheep want me to do something that's anti or that's taking me away from what God wants me to do, then I'm going to have to park this and address certain things amongst the sheep. So for example, like with Moses, Jethro recognizes, Russ, there's too many people on your hands. You have to appoint 70 elders. You can't do this all by yourself. But even with that still, Moses still finds himself in a predicament where, for example, he goes to seek the Lord. Everyone else has to stay back. So he becomes the middleman. And instead of Israel, God's chosen people wanting or having a relationship with God themselves, they're going through a middleman. When God wants to communicate with them, they're like, no, go through Moses. When the cloud of glory comes, they're like, no, Moses, yeah, cool. We'll, and it's like, this is where like a common challenge with discipleship comes in, where people become so reliant on their leaders and don't build a relationship with God for themselves. Yeah. And the leaders then become idols to the people. And that's why we're seeing, whether you want to call it, some might call it celebrity culture. I don't even think even idolatry towards leadership has to even do
celebrity.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to start with celebrity culture. There's spaces where you don't need to be a celebrity, but the way you're viewed, the way you're relied on, the way people just come to you for everything, as opposed to like leaning towards the Lord, bruh. So yeah, going back to the manhood piece, like I think one of my concerns is we want men to come in to serve, but we don't want men for men. And I think that's maybe because of the challenges that comes with it. And it's going to be a hard job. I'm not even going to lie, but we're going to have to make space for that either way. If we want men back in the church, we're going to have to create that space to be able to minister to them, but also allow men to commune with themselves and fellowship with themselves. So those are some of the things that I've learned from that space.
I've got a few questions.
Go for it.
He's not really asked much.
We ain't really been talking much, you know?
I've been listening. I've got a few questions.
Yeah, sure.
And they might be a bit hard hitting, but I'm going to ask them.
He's a guest, though, please.
I'm going to start with the men.
I want him to come back.
I'm going to start with the men.
Yeah.
I hear everything that you're saying. I think a lot of the stuff that you said is really important. It's something I've been thinking about a lot. So as a man going to church, I struggled a lot, especially in the church places I was in a few years ago. My biggest struggle wasn't that churches didn't try to do men's events or like men's fellowships, because they did. Like the church I was part of, they tried to do the odd men's fellowships and stuff like that. And that was cool. But even if they did it regularly, or if they, like you said, that you've got to be intentional about doing these things. I don't know. I don't know of the. Sometimes it can seem like a novelty, like, oh, we got to do this a men's event where we do men's stuff and we talk about men's things, right? And they're cool. It's cool. But I can get a lot of that, from my friends outside of church, right? So where I felt lost almost is church, as in or especially the churches I was in, was church just didn't feel like it was for me. Like it felt, for want of a better word, very feminine. It just didn't feel like church just didn't feel like it was for me. Like in many spaces, that's not to say that it wasn't other men in the church that, like I said, they didn't do men's events and stuff like that. All that stuff, cool, but I didn't feel. And it's not because I wanted to be in leadership or anything like that. I'm a kind of person that I like to serve. Like wherever I go, I want to be involved in some sense. But I've never had a call or desire to be in any sort of leadership in terms of church.
Yeah.
But
so
why do you say yeah like that? Why do you say like
you don't know.
why do you say that?
Just to jump in, when you say feminine, like what did you describe some of the stuff, just so I can like understand?
I'm trying to think of a way to put it. So first and foremost, I'm just saying this was my perception. I'm not even saying my perception was right. I'm just saying this is how I felt at the time, right? I just wanted to make that clear before. I don't know. So it could be just the sheer amount of women in the church. It could have been that. So that's just naturally, if the majority of the church is female, or women, sorry, and maybe the pastor's a man, but everything else coming out that is women, then I think that naturally that is going to come out in terms of how the church services flows, how the church does things, just naturally, not even maliciously or intentionally, just naturally. If the church is led predominantly by women and congregations predominantly women, I think that's going to come out in ways, and it's going to be, again, unintentionally, but it's just going to come out like that. And that's how it felt. Again, this was just my perception. Again, my perception could be wrong, but that's how it felt at the time. So yeah, I don't want to. There's other things. I don't think the other things are that important. What I will say is, it just didn't feel like it was for me at that time. And I guess as a pastor, and I think you mentioned one thing. You mentioned a couple of things in terms of like, oh yeah, more men's events and not men's events. I don't want to misrepresent what you were trying to say, but you mentioned that the church needs to do things to make sure, and I think that's good. I think, but is it that the church needs to be intentional about doing things for men to bring men back in, or should the way church is supposed to be run biblically, naturally? Just naturally cater to men, not cater to men. So that's the wrong word. Sorry, include men. Yeah, sorry, thank you. That's a much better word. Include men. Just generally, like why do churches need to be or do something specifically, or is it because we're in such a place now that men aren't coming to the church that we almost have to overcorrect? Yeah, almost like overcorrect to like bring the men back in, or should just how church. Should a man be going into church, or maybe it's just me, so you can tell it's me. Should I be going to a church and thinking, oh, this is really I don't know if this is for me. Like this is quite feminine. Like, what do you think? What do you think about me as a man saying that? That's how I felt. Like, and what's your response to that?
I think it's a fair thing, and I think that's something that I have heard a lot of men say, and I still do hear a lot of men say. With your point in regards to over engineering, I think that's the state that we are in. That's just my personal view.
So what does that look like though? Over engineering or over correcting or whatever it is.
I'll explain it. So if, for example, if a church community, let's say there's 100 people in a church and maybe there's like 10 men or 5 men in the church, let's say 5 men. If we're doing stuff to include them, getting involved in maybe certain church responsibilities and stuff like that, discipleship.
But that's what churches should be doing anyway, no?
Yeah, they should.
I mean, that's not overcorrection. That's just
no. I'm doing a back point to go to.
Okay, cool.
If even if we minister and support them, that there's still a church where they're a very small minority, and that doesn't change the narrative. That doesn't change the narrative of the fact that we actually need more men in church anyway, for the sake of families, for the sake of building community, for the sake of That's that God wants in his body. He wants men to be represented as well. And I think that for those kind of few core reasons, we then have to look at maybe our church context as well. Denominations also have a part to play. Because when you look at certain technicalities, so for example, maybe in black majority churches, we can see that's very common. Maybe when we shift over to Anglican, Baptist, Methodist, Orthodox, and we can see slight shifts. We see maybe more families come, more like, what do they call it? Husband, wife, 2 kids. I forgot what the
Nuclear
families.
But why, sorry to interrupt again. Yeah. I'm going to keep challenging you.
Yeah,
so
sure.
why is that then? So why is it that these churches have more men? Like why? What do they do differently, or are they like what is it that's different? That's what I want to try and. Because I get it. Like you're saying, more people need to come to Christ. Like everyone, we want more people to come to Christ. Of course, men are super, super important. I'm not denying that, and there is a lack of men in church, a lot of men that are believers. But I'm just wary of this kind of like, I guess how you phrase it, the over-engineering or overcorrection, or like I feel like churches should be trying to do church properly. And if churches are doing church properly, then men will be comfortable or will come to church. Like, why do we need to do extra things? Or like, why does anything extra need to happen? Like, if we're doing church, of course, there's different expressions of church. I'm not, obviously, with denominations and people do church differently. But if the right heart is in place, like, why should anything be different? Like, what is different? Or if we're going back to so for example, the church I go to, there is more men. I'm just going to say there's just more men than any experience I've ever been in the church. Yeah. Why is that? Like why is that? And if that is a thing, like you pointed out yourself, is something going wrong in where men aren't present or men don't feel comfortable? Or what is it in your opinion? Like what?
Let me just the church that you're currently at, what is it's
Anglican. It's Anglican.
It's Anglican. Yeah. Okay, cool. So Okay, that helps anyway. So for someone,
it's also white majority.
Okay, yeah. So I mean that helps in a sense because when you look at the history of the Anglican Church, anyway, it's really family orientated in the sense that back in when it was first established and it broke into church and state, families used to go to church on a Sunday. Community, it was really about husband, wife, bringing their kids, raising them, under the Lord, that kind of stuff. That's been their ethos for as long as they've been. It's only now that they're kind of falling away and loads of divides and stuff like that. But that's not what I'm here to speak on. I would say that a lot of it has to do with the traditions behind the church spaces that you're in. So you've mentioned Anglican. Pentecostal spaces, let's say black majority Pentecostal spaces, we see the underlying narratives of a lot of single parent mothers bringing their kids to church. Yeah. These are some of the underlying reasons. And it's a prominent thing. It's a community thing that's then seeps into the church space. So these are some of the underlying things. I don't necessarily think it starts off as a Christ or Christianity issue. There's some underlying issues. There's the socio-economic issues of, let's say, for example, when you go South London, East London, you look at a majority of the churches, do you see majority family churches, or do you see, like, for example, like it's just like divided homes, or maybe just young adults and older people? Like it really depends on. There's some underlying factors that help shape this. That's why it's not really easy to answer your question, right?
Well, no, my question. So the heart of my question is, what? Because you spoke about over-engineering, over-correcting. Right. So the heart of my question is, what does that look like, and why do we need to do it? Yeah. Okay. So that's the heart of my question. Right. So whether I'm not. You brought up the whole denominations in terms of there's more families and stuff like that. I'm not even that interested in necessarily why Anglican has more I'm not that interested in that specifically, even though it's a good point that you made. I'm not. It's not that I'm specific. Yes, there are more men in those churches, but I'm not. That's not what I'm interested in. I guess what am I interested in now, especially as you're a leader and you're someone that works with men specifically. How do the church? What are the church doing to tackle the fact that there isn't a lot of men, and is that right? Like, is that what we're supposed to be doing? Whatever it is, whatever that looks like, whatever overcorrection looks like, whatever over engineering looks like, is that right? Because I'm just saying from my experience, when I've seen it happen, especially in the churches I was in, it didn't help me. I don't think it helped a lot of the men that were going. Like, I remember one of my friends, he was like big on the men's meetups or whatever. And then it wouldn't happen for a few months, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, well, we haven't had that men's meeting for a while, and that's why I haven't been at church. We haven't done that men's thing." I'm like, okay, if you're relying on this men's thing, there's something deeper that, like, I can't really articulate myself exactly, but I guess my question is, what does that over-engineering look like, and do we need to do it? Why do we need to do it? That's the heart of my question, not whether Anglican or Catholic.
Quick ad break here. So if we have this thing about there's more women than men in church, and like I go to a black majority church, there's always guys, they're at the tech events. I'm telling my girls, if you're looking for a husband, go to the tech events. Because I literally went, these black guys, they want money, Sha. Because when I was like, raw, like that's when I was like, no, it's 50%. Like, you might go to a church, you might think, oh, it's like 60-40 or whatever. But at these tech events, these finance events,
You mean
the black men are there.
You mean church events, or just tech events in general?
Just in the world.
Yeah, okay.
In the world, they are there. Yeah. And I was like, when will we start evangelizing at some of these tech events?
Clearly.
Because that's when I'm reminded that it's not, there's more men than women or more women than men.
The world, like,
it's actually,
where are you finding them?
they're actually very close, like in terms of the demographic, like in terms of the percentages. It's just they're not in the church, but they're at tech sports events.
That's a good point, and I've actually said that point quite a few times over the years. In that, it's interesting because when it comes to church, for example, we don't find them there. But if it's trading, if it's property, if it's tech, find them there. If it's football matches,
entrepreneurism,
there. Right? And so to go to your question, I think that I think that men's spaces in church are absolutely important. What the aim of those events or those communities or those things, whatever they might be, that is maybe what we need to look at again. So, for example, 412 Men, one of the reasons behind it is that if you can disciple 4 men, then we're looking to do this over 12 generations. And so that's kind of like the aim behind it. And I thought
it was a scripture. Look at me.
It is.
Okay.
But then the deeper
layers.
There's right behind it. So it's kind of like, what's the intention behind it? It's not just the gathering. The gathering is not just, we're going to do a paintballing event. It's that, okay, cool, there's men in this space. We're creating a space not just for conversation about what men go through X, Y, and Z, but it's how men can become more godly, how they can become more Christ-like and valuable in their local churches. I think that's what we have to reassess, because a lot of the events that are now kind of trying to creep up are just aimed at just getting them back in the building, but they're not staying in the building. And I think we have to meet the deeper need. The deeper need is not tech. The deeper need is not finance or career. And we're seeing them drawn to that. The deeper need is that you are loved, you're called by God, and God wants you as sons in his community. But we have to then look at, okay, cool, how can we speak to that? How can we minister to that? And how can we keep you there? You, your family, your girlfriend, your whatever, you and your kids. That's one of the key things. To your point of over-engineering, yes, I think maybe for not to get so engrossed in like the denominational context, but where we are as a church space globally, we do have to do the hard work to get men back in. And that it might not just be events. It might be, you said outside of church, you do stuff with your guys as well. But the intention behind that, especially as a godly man, you have to think, look, amongst my brothers, we have to be like iron sharpens iron. I have to be able to challenge you. If I see you as a brother and your walk is not there with the Lord, but I know that if given the chance, you would be passionate about the Lord. I have to use those opportunities to do so. Otherwise, it's just group chats. We're just talking about Arsenal, Man United. We're just talking about crypto.
Liverpool.
We're using the opportunities that we have to not challenge one another. And I think that's
I got another question. Sorry. Let me not take over.
So in that was really helpful to think about like intention and stuff. In an ideal world, would you say that the work of 412 would, in an ideal world, churches would take that on? Would you say so that churches are doing that work as opposed to because there's this gap, we now have organizations made by godly men to do this work to help people in their churches. In a fantasy world or in an ideal world, would you think churches themselves should be taking on their roles? Does that question make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say fully, because I think that there's an in-house responsibility. So there's a responsibility towards the church, and then there's our responsibility to the culture.
In 412 or in your church? Sorry.
No, in 412. So
yeah, got you.
Even if everything that 412 currently do was implemented in local churches, there's still that space that has to speak outside.
Because so it's not only for church people.
It's primarily, but we get guys who are not Christians who come into that community. And the whole point is, once again, it's this discipleship thing. And so yes, we're called to disciple, and there's discipleship work that happens in-house. But at the same time, there's guys outside that don't have or don't walk in this reality that we walk in. And so there's still that work that still needs to be done outside. So I think that part of the work, like Ephesians 4, we're equipping the saints to do the work of ministry. And some are called in-house and some are called outside. They're still part of the fold, but they're called outside. So I still think there's a space for them.
Kind of thing.
Got one last question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Quickly define discipleship for me, because we've used it a couple of times. Define discipleship.
You say, uh-oh.
No.
In the Christian context, I would say discipleship is the training process or mechanism where the saints become like Christ, or become the fullness of the stature of the measure of Christ, or it's that training process towards that.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say discipleship is. And then how to do that, there's obviously different mechanisms and tools. There's modeling, so by watching somebody. There's also teaching, following instructions. There's the basic disciplines of prayer, fasting,
Bible reading,
giving to the poor, kind of like the basic things that we see in scripture that Christ does towards his disciples. Yeah. So that's what I'd say discipleship is.
That's good.
Quick question. Following up. So still kind of linked to the manhood, but just I think this could. I think you'd be the best place because you lead a church, you're a pastor of a church, to answer this. I guess because I've heard this from my male friends, but I don't think it's a specifically male thing. But I've definitely heard it from my male friends, because a lot of what you speak about, even things like 412 do, and even other fellowships do, like even my Christian friends, we have like that relationship where we can talk, we sharpen each other, we rebuke each other when we need to rebuke each other. We've done Bible studies before, we pray together, all of that good stuff. And some of those same friends says, I don't need to go to church. I have a friend that's like, I don't even want to bait him out, but he's like, literally, he's done with church. He's done with the church as in the local church. Like he's still a professing Christian, but he's done with the local church in that sense. So I can look at it from the man's side. I do think that to our detriment sometimes, as men, we can be very much like, or as Christian men, we can be like, but I know, I have my relationship with God and I know I've got all the knowledge and that's enough. Like that's what makes me a Christian, or that's what, and I think we can fall into that trap and say, I don't really need, especially when I have my 412 or I have my brothers that we chop it up. So we're doing church in a sense, we're doing fellowship. So I don't need to be a part of a local church. So I guess my question is, why do we need a local church? Like why? You can take it from the men standpoint or just in general. Like why do you think we need it?
Very good question. Paul speaks to the church in Corinth about the fact that we are many parts and we're one body. And I think the danger of that narrative of I go to this and I go to that is that nobody works in isolation. So nobody works in
But I've got my friends, man. We do a Zoom call every week. I'm not in isolation. I'm with my boys.
You're with your boys, but then the local church context speaks of, well, if let's say, for example, I think of Paul's writing and I think of local church as a body, not the global body, but a local body. There's your boys. Let's say you're the thumb. Your boys might be the index finger, but your local church is the middle finger. It's this one. It's that one. It's a torso. It's a leg. It's a foot. It's ears. When you only like one or two things, you're robbing yourself of other things, and what that causes you to do is it causes you to overcompensate. If you have a hand, I always use this analogy. If you have a hand, you're the thumb, you're the finger. If I need you to carry a bag of shopping with these two fingers, it doesn't make sense. If you're part of a local body and they're, let's say, the whole hand and the palm, you're able to carry something you couldn't do before. When it's just the two of you, you overcompensate. And that's what happens when we do stuff in silo. A lot of Christians are overcompensating. So it's like, I have my boys. But then there's deeper needs that every man will have, every woman will have, that your boys can't speak to. And sometimes it may not even be like, it might not even be your pastor. It might not be this. It might be someone, in, I don't know, a church, one brother or sister from, the persecuted church in Thailand or China, that you see a video on YouTube and it's like, I needed that. And I think we're in a time where, especially like during the pandemic, where people were throwing this narrative of, especially because we were doing services online.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't need to go to church anymore. But it's that connectedness. And it goes back to the point of discipleship. Jesus did discipleship in proximity to people. You remove that, it doesn't matter how good the internet is. If you remove proximity to people, it still hampers. And this is not to say, because someone might say, okay, what about someone who lives far in the desert or whatever? Even if it's 2 or 3, that's why the scripture says where 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, there's still something there. So we need that connectedness. We can't do discipleship without proximity. It's absolutely important. So when people say, church is not needed, I'm like, you can't do discipleship, you can't do church without proximity. Properly.
Can I add to that as well? I think,
sure.
It's such a helpful question and such a useful insight, thinking about the analogies. And I think the Bible just doesn't recognize, in terms of like the New Testament writers, Corinthians, what Paul is saying to Timothy, to Titus, whatever, it doesn't recognize Christianity without church. It's like you're saved into a church type thing. Obviously we need to, not a particular church, but like even just the structure, it's a household. There are elders, there are or elders or pastors or whatever language, there's deacons, things are to be done orderly way. This is how these are the principles for worship. We have to take Holy Communion. We get baptized. This is from the Holy Scriptures. Like, if you want to be faithful to what the Bible says it means that you've been born again, you can't just do that with your friends. You could, I'm sure you could still be a believer, but you can't be living out the preaching of the apostles, I don't think, if you're not in a church.
I hear you. And community that, and I think, obviously, after the pandemic, even as much as people were throwing this narrative of we don't need to go to church, X, Y, Z, how people were behaving and what people were showing us were that you're not in community, you're not plugged in.
Mental health.
All of this, it shows that
even
you're not
if you
plugged
were in church.
It shows. But for me, what I feel like there's now a mass transition. People are now craving to come back to church because it's like I was missing out on this. I thought I knew it all. I thought that I could do it by myself. I thought I could, wake up and watch the church live stream. But this ain't it. People now realize and recognize for themselves. And I think sometimes you kind of have to, if people feel that way, it's fine. I'm gonna pray for you. And so at some point, the penny's gonna drop, and you're gonna realize there's people that are of value to me outside of even my friendship circle. And you have to be open to that. And that's why I love Paul's writing about the book. That's one of my favorite writings, because it reminds me how much the family narrative, when it talks about how we've been brought into a commonwealth, like it's a family, we're children of God. Why do you want to rob yourself? self of a blessing, right? The blessing of family that you have. There's a wider community that you have that has been given freely. There's a richness in it that you rob yourself when you're just like, you know what, it's me and my boys.
Yeah.
that's ends mentality. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's just me and my boys. Like, and the Lord is like, nah, there's so much more to offer. And when, you know, scripture talks about, and he gave them gifts, like there's so much richness that comes where you speak to someone who's been journeying with the Lord. No one knows them, but their journey with the Lord, what they can impart to you can change your spiritual life differently. You're like, I thought I could pray. And you speak to someone who you speak like, you know, during a pandemic, I connected with a believer from Lebanon, and you know, he was talking about like how, you know, they get bombed often and X, Y, and Z. And I was just thinking, wow, some of these truths that he's sharing, I'm like, we take it for granted here. Yeah. But it's like just that conversation and this relationship building has shown me that, or exposed me to that. And I think that's the beauty of it. Like, you don't have to do it by yourself. You don't just have to do it with your own people. There's more. And that brings what Christ, when Paul is talking about the fullness of the stature of the measure of Christ, there's an abundance that we have to walk in. And that comes in when we embrace everything God has to give and not just select and pick and choose. Yeah.
Something I wanted to ask you about.
Good questions, by the way.
Something I wanted to ask you about, like coming back to discipleship, or something I've even noticed in my own church of like a new guy comes to church and I don't always see like men seeking him out and like trying to, and maybe it's because those men don't almost feel like equipped, or like they don't want to be the awkward one of like, oh, what's your name type thing. But like, speak to me of like, you've got a new guy or a new girl in the church, like how does that process of like discipleship, living life with them, like walking in community, like how would you like flesh that out basically?
So if someone joins, one of the first things that we do is really start a journey of getting to know the person, because like I said, I think that removes this sense of needing to try and decipher whether they're gifted or whether they're if I find out if this person can sing on the first day, then I've got a plan for that person subconsciously that they're going to join the worship team, which is very easy. It's very easy to do. But yeah, it's more getting to know the person and then kind of sharing what we offer as a church. So the Bible studies, discipleship training, we do church socials, we do end of month prayer on a Friday collectively. Like, we offer different things. These are the aims of these different things. So when you come, so Bible study, the aim is biblical literacy. We want people to grow in their ability to understand the word of God, look at it properly, interpret it properly, all of that kind of stuff. That's why we're doing that. We do prayer early on Tuesdays. Why do we do that? Because every believer needs to have an active working prayer life. So we also not just pray, but we teach on prayer, that kind of stuff. So we're exposing them to the things that we offer and why we offer. And not just, and I'm not saying it like it's a product, but what we do as a church community and why we do it. And this is so that people understand what we're about. Because I feel like people just say, or people come to churches and they say, oh, this is the event list for the week. We're doing this. We're doing prayer on Wednesday. We're doing Bibles. But people don't know why. Yeah. When you make it clear from the jump, then people at least have an understanding. Then it's like, okay, cool. You come on prayer. Oh, you went on prayer? Yeah, you know what? I was tired, this, that, and the third. Okay, like why? Oh yeah, because I went to bed late. I was talking on the phone. Okay, cool. Like, okay, cool. Let's journey with that. Everyone jumps on prayer for 6. That's when we do it in City Worship. 6 in the morning on Tuesday. And we kind of like, you recognize you need to grow in your prayer life. So that's what we offer. So there's something that we're going to have to do in order to ensure that you're on at 6. So if we're going to have to be a bit disciplined as to how we do the night before, or things that you do to ensure that X, Y, and Z. Or if you need like an accountability partner, 10 minutes before someone calls you, hey bro, hey sis, yo, prayer's in like 10, jump on. And after that, it's not just to get the person on the call, but after, how did you find prayer? Should we do prayer like on a Friday, or should we meet up? Should we, study scriptures together? It's that we started like accountability groups. We've also started like Bible study homework groups as well. So when I do Bible study, I give people homework. Fair enough. I give people homework. So, and we have a platform. We use a platform called Circle. So Circle's like a like a mini Facebook, right? So there's different channels, threads, themes, all of that kind of stuff. So we have a Bible study homework channel. So when I set the homework, if I'm the one leading, when I set the homework, I'm like, okay, cool. Homework has to be in on Tuesday night latest because Bible study's on Wednesday. if you don't hand it in by Tuesday night, I'm gonna give your group a date to do Bible study next. So what does that do? Some people might look at that as punishment, but it's like, no, it's two things. It's accountability, but it's also going to give you responsibility as well. Because when I say this is your date for it, you guys now have to prepare. You guys have to make sure that the Bible study that you're doing, you're not waffling, you're not saying anything that's theologically incorrect, X, Y. And that is something that like the Lord asked me to start doing to help building like a level of maturity amongst the guys. Because there was a point where I was the only one doing the Bible studies. And the main reason why anyway is so that we can build a strong foundational base. But then at the same time, like discipleship can't work if you're not multiplying yourself or multiplying Christ in you or through you. So for me, I started to be like, okay, cool. I guess this kind of speaks to where I am in leadership at the moment. I'm spending a lot more time background-wise doing the hard stuff. Journey with people, just trying to create like resources and tools that will help people in our local church, but also by God's grace get to a point where I can help like just share it with other local churches so that they don't need to use it like, oh, this is a manual, but it's just resources that can help them think about how they want to do discipleship in their church. Because I feel like where we are now as a church globally, we're kind of having to return back to the fundamentals. Yeah. Pick up your cross and follow me. Like back to the core. Sit at the feet of Christ. What are the foundational teachers and follow that through? Because right now, the world that we're living in, like I said at church the other day, I saw a clip on Insta of, I can't remember who. She was interviewing someone and they were talking about Christianity and astrology or astronomy or something. Ah,
bro. I even know the clip you're talking about. I think there's astronomy, astrology, but yeah, I was just like,
is there a space for that in Christianity? And I was like, first of all, are either one of you saved in the first place?
Yeah, but the three wise men, innit? That's the
astronomy is different to astrology. That's the example she used.
I've heard that before.
Wait a minute.
That was a bit peak still.
You need to equip people to be able to discern and reject.
What are the common? Because you engage quite a lot online with like unbelievers. Like, what are the common like misconceptions that you think unbelievers like or the watching world think about Christianity? And you're just like, where did you guys get this from?
It's really like one of the big ones is really the white man's religion. That's a big one. Really frustrating.
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. I'm so sorry. No, but it's related to what you're saying. But I want to just hear you guys' opinion before I forget it. So there was a black girl that posted a TikTok saying, Christianity wasn't started in Africa like a lot of you guys think. And I was like, I've never heard anyone say Christianity. And I commented that, and I got like, people are still liking my comment. This was like a month ago. Most people agree with my sentiment. I've never heard anyone say that before. Some people are like, oh, you'd be surprised or something. I've never heard anyone say that before. Like, just quickly. Started. Yeah, I've never heard, like, because obviously people talk about like the Ethiopian eunuch or whatever, and like obviously the history in Ethiopia in terms of Christianity. But no, I've never heard anyone say it started in Africa. But people were like really like, saying no, like there are people in Africa that I said go to a Nigerian church and ask them if they've ever heard of the Ethiopian Bible. They will be looking at your face like, what are you talking about? So I just wanted to know quickly. Sorry to interrupt you. Have you guys ever heard anywhere? No. Okay, so it's not just me. Sorry, continue.
I think that speaks to the times that we're in. Like anyone can pick up their phone, say something on TikTok.
Yeah,
and no one's going to do the work to read, study, or whatever, and they're going to like it and they're going to tell someone. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things because it's not even just to do with the faith. Someone could during COVID times, and someone could say you can eat an onion and you'll be killed of
onion,
COVID.
Garlic,
it's like
ginger. People
are saying unfounded things, and because people don't want to do the work, like eating onion will cook. That people were just
put onion.
Didn't Trump say something about bleach?
What, he said something
Yes,
about
he
Trump
did. He
or-
did.
was
He
it
did.
Trump?
He did.
Crazy.
And it's like no one's gonna
outrageous.
do the work. They're just gonna go and listen. And what's frustrating is like maybe when we have Bible study and someone might come out and say, "But yeah, I watched the video and so said." And one of the first things I now say back to people is, "Did you go and study? Did you go and read?" I get it's a Bible study forum and you're asking a question, but did you study? Did you read? No. And for those people who kind of buy into certain narratives, it's like, okay, if you didn't study, if you didn't read, why do you believe it with such conviction? And because I guess this is kind of interlinked with discipleship, because people are being discipled via social. This is why I made a point of like, don't be disconnected from a local church, because I use this analogy. No one can be healthy off of eating snacks. That's what Instagram is. That's what TikTok is. They're snacks. They're short clips, 5-minute clips, 1 minute, 30-second reels. And you are more likely to take what you want from it than what you're actually contextually meant to take from it. But because people don't labor to do the hard work, it's just I'm going to trust that what this person said is true and take it for gospel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like I think I forgot your question. But yeah,
Common misconceptions, but you answer it.
Yeah,
yeah. That the white man's religion one, Christians in politics or Christianity and politics. That one is really killing me, especially right now with the American elections.
That's more of an American
Trump.
thing, though, isn't it?
No, but we did it in the UK. We did it. We had certain people that were saying Boris Johnson was God's man.
Really?
When he was, yeah.
Which God?
Who's that?
Boris Johnson was God's man.
What's it?
That it's a similar kind of narrative. Conservatives versus Labour. What they're offering, like abortion versus liberal, whatever. Like that is a very big thing. That kind of like the wahala that I was facing on Friday.
They tried to fry you.
Like someone said Jesus was a whole activist. Like, or why is there a disconnect between church and activism and stuff like that? Like Jesus was a whole activist, X, Y, and Z. And my first paragraph was literally, there's a space for Christians in activism, charitable works, and some other things. But this whole thing of Jesus being an activist, blah, 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 like that was his main mission. We're going to have to address that. We're going to have to stop that. That's what people were cooking me for that. And my first paragraph said, there's a space for Christians in activism. And then someone was like, yeah, is your issue with the fact that we said activist? Someone said, oh, Jesus was a textbook activist. I'm like, are you guys you guys are not arguing the Bible with me. You guys, that particular lady kept on repeating the word genocide. Oh, but there's a whole genocide. I'm like, I'm not arguing that there's a genocide or genocides going on. What my issue is that you're trying to make the focal point of my Lord and Savior's ministry activism.
Yeah,
I'm like, bruh, his kingdom was not of this world. He was not interested in the politics of men because he didn't want that in the first place. It's Israel that chose kings. God, when we look at scriptures, 1 Samuel, God didn't want a system where Israel had a king. He was meant to be their king. He's like, okay, cool. If you guys want a king, I'm going to give you Saul. You guys want a king, I'm going to give you other men. And now, the society that we're in, you don't want God, but then when things go wrong, you want him.
Yeah.
When, like, this narrative of churches don't give. Like, I was saying to my wife the other day, like, the three Abrahamic religions are probably the most giving organisms in the world. And you're opening your mouth to go, the church doesn't. But how do you know? Go on Charity Commission. Go and look at charitable websites. Go and see how much they give to the poor. I can guarantee they give more than you do in a year. But you're on the internet shouting, the church should do this, the church. You guys don't go to church. And the thing is that I understand certain people's frustrations, and when it looks like when certain people are giving us a bad rep, like the other day I saw Mr. Spack in a club with David and whatever.
I haven't seen them out for a bit. They're still about.
He's out and about. I get why you're frustrated when you see certain man like him like just getting away. I'm frustrated.
We just call him T now. We don't call him
T.
I
call him T as well because the P doesn't belong anywhere near his name.
He's a pastor or something.
No, he's a leader of a youth club.
This brother told me.
He's a leader of a social club or social entity. He's not in the Lord's church. But it's a thing of people like him are giving us a bad rep, but there's hundreds of thousands of faithful leaders who don't get a salary, but even who don't get a salary from church, but out of their salary from their 9 to 5 will be given to the poor, will be given to their members, will be given to people that they know are not going to say thank you afterwards. So he's preaching.
He's preaching now.
Don't come out now.
He's getting triggered, boy.
Yeah, trust me. But I say like this is
true.
like I could be on the street and I speak to someone. I'll be like, bro, no mic. But it's just that people are really misrepresenting a lot of narratives because they don't read. Then there's other bits about like, you know,
This is crazy. Because they don't read.
You don't read because there's no way you can tell me that you're saved, but you put crystals under your bed and you're burning sage. You can't, but someone on TikTok is telling you that.
Yeah.
And they're telling you that, you know, they saw 5 angels in their room and this one gave them this. Like, bro, we're entering the height of madness. And it's just normal. Like, that's one of the reasons why I really hate going on TikTok. But to challenge that, someone was like, yo, but if this is the prominent narrative, this can only be combated if people like yourself
speak truth.
You know what I mean? I speak truth to that. So that's why, like, I'm having to do the hard work of trying to do that, create content and all of that kind of stuff. And then we had, you know, during the pandemic, we kind of had this thing where the whole debate of, you know, God's wrath is justice versus universalism and all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, the aftermath of that was quite crazy. A lot of people like literally who just believed before just turned away, and that was crazy because a lot of them were Gen Z, and my heart really sunk because that's a generation that I really want to reach. So that one was a big one. If God is good, if God is just, why does X, Y, Z happen? That's a big one.
How much time do you have?
We need to wrap up, but
I'm gonna ask you off air. What you just said made me think of something, but I'll ask you off air.
I was gonna say, in one sense, it almost feels like we're just, you know, getting started. But to
we could talk for hours, like, I can tell.
There's so much more to say.
So much
but
more.
Maybe wrapping up, we know that you're going on a sabbatical. Do you want to just let us know what was the catalyst for that?
How long for?
Hope
a month. Oh, is it a month? I thought it was a year.
So dramatic.
A yearly sabbatical. Yearly sabbatical.
Yeah, sabbatical.
There is like he's going away for 12 months.
I misread it, you know. I thought you were going. I thought it was a yearly. I'm so stupid.
But I will speak to that. If I ever am in a place where I feel like that is necessary, I wouldn't mind doing that. I wouldn't mind doing that. I wouldn't mind doing that. 100%.
I know some pastors that after 7 years they take a 6 month sabbatical.
Yeah, my pastor.
I think they enforce it, as in the church will enforce it, and they might do additional teaching. They might do some counseling.
3 months recently, I think.
I think it's quite healthy. I think pastors and burnout is. I mean, look, we don't have enough time, but like, how many pastors go through burnout every day? Yeah. Have you gone through? Have you gone through any of those?
You can't say rounding up. Have you gone through burnout?
To cut the long story short, that's kind of like why I got into running in the first place. In the pandemic, I lost myself.
Really?
Because you're shepherding people, you're going through unprecedented times, and you're having to lead people, and you yourself, you've not been there before.
Yeah.
So I lost myself. I put on a lot of weight. I can definitely say for free that at some moments in time I was definitely depressed. And it was just doing so much. And the reality was my peers were in similar positions. Like, you've got members who are passing away, family members of members who have passed away. You've got the reality of you're having to churn out content, you have to record your live streams, you are disconnected from physical community. That's one of the things that hit me the most. The fact that I was removed from people, I was sitting in front of a camera speaking to people. That honestly, that was driving me insane. to a point where I was just like, we need to somehow maybe get back into our building, even if it's just following the rules. But yeah, I need a team around. I need people around me. It's driving me insane. So I think that was the catalyst.
You lot tried, man.
Yeah, no, honestly.
You guys tried.
Honestly. And a lot of people don't know. And this is probably the first time I've said this in public, because I did want to speak about it at some point this year. But yeah, pandemic, yes, I really, really lost myself. That's kind of, fast forward, that's kind of why I started outdoor running. And yeah, by God's grace, ran a marathon or 2 this year. And yeah, it's just, it is a lot. But the sabbatical, absolutely necessary. I've realized that when I've taken time off in the past, I'm actually not resting. I've got church at the forefront of my mind. Yeah, I'm still, someone,
Pastor, please, can you
do this? And I'm still voice noting. And yes, I love the sheep. So it was my first instinct. But at the same time, I realized that there has to be healthy boundaries. And that's why my members know, listen, after a certain time, you can't call me. And if I say, for example, I'm going out with my wife, please don't call me. We've got elders, we've got people within the church community.
Don't press my phone.
Please, please.
Emmanuel's like this.
Yeah, my phone is on Do Not Disturb most of the time. So even once it just goes, you know that
you already know.
Like my family, for me, I always tell the guys, if you want me to serve you guys the best, then I need to serve the people closest to me the best first. My wife needs to see me serve her well, and I owe that to God as well first ministry. That's my first. And then to my children, ministry can't rob me of that. And if I feel like I'm at a place where ministry is robbing me of that, I always tell people I would gladly give it away, because like I said, longevity is the goal for me. Longevity is the goal. So if you guys want to rob me of that and cause me to miss out like Moses, bro, I'm not doing. You guys aren't going to draw me up.
You're making that promise.
And sometimes it does feel like that. Even there was like in July, I took like an impromptu week off, and then I was given an enforced extra week by the elders and my wife. They were like, "Yeah, we're giving you an extra week. Don't be involved in anything church related." They told people, "Don't contact him. Don't contact AP. He's not coming to Bible study. He's not coming to prayer." Yeah, so literally, they forced me out, and I was like, "Okay, fine, another week off." So yeah, I'm doing that, and I really feel like people should encourage their leaders first, and then also encourage their leaders to rest. And if you feel like you can support them, like over the last couple of years, some people have done some incredible things for me. Like
that's the last question coming from me. I'm sorry. How can churches better support their pastors?
Just especially if your pastors are open enough, like see where you can support them. So I'll give a practical example. Like I remember saying, like Sundays are probably the most tiring days.
Yeah.
Like you get up early, it's your whole family. Like, and I deeped it because, like, from time to time, like, my wife and I do, like, marriage counseling, what do you call it? Like, refreshers.
Top-ups, yeah.
So, top-up. So, there's an amazing couple that do that for us from time to time. And they were like, look, I don't think you guys understand that it's not just you two that sacrifice, it's your kids that sacrifice as well. Like, your kids having to wake up early because you have to wake up early to go to church to serve other people. And after church, when you should be going home, you're sticking around to counsel people, mentor people, coach people, whatever it is, and they have to stick about. And they're like, Mommy and Daddy, can we go home? Mommy and Daddy, I want lollipop. Mommy and Daddy, I want McDonald's, whatever. And you're like, wait. And you get home late or later in the day because of the sacrifices you make. Yeah, I tweeted something about like Sundays and like my peers, like I just... like solidarity to all my peers, like in ministry. And like a couple DM'd me and they were like, what's your address? I was like, I sent them my address. And literally, the wife knows my wife as well. And she was like, yeah, we're sending you guys like food. And they sent like, what's this lady that's Stormzy's cook? I think Michelle cooks or something like that. And they got like bare things. And these guys don't even come to our church, but we know, like, we've known them like from time. And I was like, I was not like, and like little things like on Sunday mornings, like, because we get to church early and stuff like that, members would just like buy me a coffee, buy my wife a coffee, and they get us something from Wenzel's. Me, I like Yum Yum, so they get me this thing called Yummies.
From Wenzel's?
Yeah.
Have you had the patty in Wenzel's?
Yes, I have.
That beef patty, that's taken, I'm not joking,
I can't lie.
in a year, yeah? I've probably spent £200. I'm not gonna lie. That biff party,
it's solid.
Yeah.
It's solid.
No, I hear it. I hear it.
Just little things
Yeah.
like even this year, like, bruh, the church family like put money together to send us on holiday.
Oh,
Honestly,
oh yeah, because you had like a fight. Did you have like a? How can that be laughing in the background? Because you had like a. Was it like a? You had like an anniversary or something? Am I bugging?
So it was around the time of our anniversary, and we were meant to go away, but we had to stay for church reasons. And yeah, behind closed doors, like the elders had discussions with like other members and stuff, and they were like, yeah, we need to raise funds for these guys. They need to go on holiday. And yeah, they raised it. And literally, like, they gave us the card and I opened it up. And I just started tearing. And I couldn't they asked me to read it out. And I said, I can't. So I passed it to the business.
Go round the cameras there.
I thought you were done. I thought you guys were chit-chatting, you know.
No.
I genuinely thought you guys were chit-chatting.
Sorry, Femi went to the toilet whilst Eman was talking, but no. But
Sorry.
that was like, go around.
The way he was talking, I thought you guys were just chopping it up. My bad. Sorry.
And like I couldn't read it because I'm just choking up. And then my wife was just in full blown tears. Like she couldn't read it, so I just had to force myself to read it out. But it's to the question, I just feel like when you see certain things, either ask or just like speak to it like however you can. So like I said, the little things that some of the members do on a Sunday morning, whether it's a coffee or a pastry or whatever, or in the middle of the week, so AP, do you need I don't know, we see you use your notebooks, do you need a new one? Like they always, someone went to Ghana recently, they were like, your beard, do you need shea butter? I said, yes, why not? Absolutely. Like you know what I mean? Like it's just seeing the needs and being able to speak to that, or if not, like ask or ask someone who does know. And then they can support in that way. Like prayer always goes the distance. I would never say no to that. And sometimes I'm like, guys, please keep me in your prayers, and just be straightforward. And so I just think it's, if you can find out the need, whatever you can do to do that, support the need as well. And sometimes it might just be like in service in the local community. If you feel like you can pick up stuff that will alleviate pressure from them, please do so. It goes a long way, because I promise you, a lot of the time, like leaders have to trust that those that they're serving have like the best thoughts towards them. Yeah. Like it's literally a faith thing. You're just literally trusting that, you know what, I know these guys actually value what I'm doing. Because more time, even if that is the case, a lot of people don't say anything. And it's not that we're expecting you to say something every week, but leadership is a lonely road. Yeah. Because when you're sleeping or you're enjoying or you're doing, you've gone out for, you're gone out to, to bowling, or you've gone out for mocktail night or cocktail night or whatever. Like we're indoors thinking, bruh, like how can we serve these guys better? How can we create something new? Or we see that people are being challenged in this area. What can we do to mitigate that? So a lot of the time, like it's sacrifice, and we don't get to do it. And that's why this year I've kind of been like, I actually need to reclaim some of my time back. So that's why I do my outdoor running, going to the gym, and like trying to be intentional with spending more time with my peers as well in ministry and friends who are, even if they're not in ministry, just spending time with them as well. So that's been really fun. So
we need to bring you back, man. We need to wrap up. But no, thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Pastor Eman. Definitely will bring you back by God's grace. But 100%. I don't even know. I can't remember what we even spoke about. But no, man, I appreciate you so much for coming on. Appreciate you so much for coming on, man. Yeah, that's Black Berea podcast.
Appreciate what you're doing for the church as well.
Nah, man, I tell you, we don't appreciate our pastors enough. Like faithful ministers who preach God's word faithfully, like love God's people with like generous hearts, sincere hearts. Like we don't appreciate them enough. So yeah, man, buy your pastor a car.
It's so silly.
Listen,
holiday now. Next year car, they might get you a range, you know. They could get you a range. See worship. Get him a range. A black colour. Maybe one for his wife as well. New free series for your wife as well. Why not?
They owe me that free series anyway.
All the scratches for the kingdom. But we out.
Take care.
Thank you so much.